The cats are not approaching. That's good. Overall feedback for the game for this 1 year. I would say that it has exceeded my expectations. Because when I first saw the beta of Zenless Zone Zero, let's look in direction of Jinjo, because she's glorious. There we go. Bit closer, there we go. There. I will not move the camera from now until the end of the video, so you can alt-tab and watch some hentai while I talk to you. And it exceeded my expectations, because during the beta, the fight didn't make sense from a visual point of view. Like, it looked like button mashing. I didn't find it particularly interesting. But they introduced some interesting stuff in the gameplay. I can. There was a little black cat, and now it's become a big chunky cat. They added some features, some animations, some interactions between on and off field characters, and the gameplay has become a lot more dynamic and enjoyable. And in addition to that, after putting my hands on it, because I was not part of the beta, I realized how enjoyable it is. I only have one issue with the Zenless Zone Zero, which is, for me, it's unplayable on phone, on a smartphone, you know, a touch screen. My hands are... I'm not old, no, well, I'm not young, and I have orangutan-like hands. I'm terrible with touchscreen, absolutely terrible. Keyboard and mouse, no worries. Joypad, okay, I can handle that. But a touchscreen for me is undoable. So as long as it's a matter of, you know, farming discs, clearing the weekly void, that sort of that, no worries. But endgame content, no. Like, when I do my no-hit solo Miyabi runs, I do it on mouse and keyboard. If I do the same run on the smartphone with a full team, I miss full max score. Like, I would not even get full stars in the Shiyu defense if I could only play from my phone. And the game is getting more complex as things go on. Because, for example, when the game started, Ellen combos are... Does she have anything even resembling a combo? Not really. Like, you have to decide the timing of your things, but she doesn't have particularly convoluted combo. Ishuan, properly playing Ishuan on smartphone for me is undoable. For me, Ishuan on smartphone, I spam normal attack. If I see something coming in my direction, I tap the skill, and when I see the icon for the ultimate on screen, regardless of what ultimate it is, I play. That's as far as Ishuan's gameplay on smartphone goes for me. Now, on computer, with a keyboard, it's very enjoyable and fun. And your mileage, of course, might vary, because if you are much younger than me and you grew up in the smartphone, touchscreen smartphone era, you're probably used to that more than you are with a joypad or a keyboard, so you're probably a god compared to me on a smartphone. But for me, it's a bit difficult from that point of view, to the point that when I'm outside home, I play Honkai Star Rail more than Zenless Zone Zero, just because, you know, it has autoplay and it's turn-based, so I don't need to worry too much about where and how I click things if I want to do things manually. And other feedback regarding this year, well, definitely the TV mode. I was happy that it was gone, but I'm sad that it has not been implemented back in the main story, especially now that we can skip parts of it. Because I thought that going through the TV mode for everything in the game felt a little bit dull and repetitive, and it gave me the impression that it was just a way to make the game feel longer than it actually was. Like, a 3-minute quest would become a 10-minute quest that just because you had to go in the TV mode and move your bamboo left and right, solving a puzzle that required very minimal input by the player, and then finish the dialogue with the NPC at the end. So from that point of view, I'm glad the TV mode was removed, but I believe that story-wise it would have been nicer if we had it at least in the main story or some important side quests. Because right now TV mode is completely gone. from the game, and it's a little bit sad. I do not agree with the people who were saying, "Oh no, now I'm going to quit ZZZ because the TV mode was the only thing that made it unique." But you can have that opinion. For me, it's nonsense. It's opinions. We can agree with some, disagree with some others, think that some opinions are complete and utter nonsense, and that's my thought about, oh, the TV mode was the core of ZZZ. No, it was not. It never. You see, she is gooning to Cento. And now that she has been exposed, she turns the other way. I know how you feel, little blonde girl, ever since Jane Doe was revealed. What was I talking about? TV mode. And yeah, I wish they brought it back for the main story, but I'm also worried about how it will be re-implemented. Will it be excessively long? Because I don't like time padding. It really bothers me when I have the feeling that the game is wasting my time. And skippable dialogues when they are between NPCs that I don't care about are a huge improvement for any game. Because when this guy who is standing back there has a dialogue with that girl and they want to send me on a mission to kill a dude, 99% of the time the dialogue between them is a slop. It's not particularly interesting, and I would prefer to skip it. Every now and then there are some interesting NPCs and side characters, but it's still 100% worth listening to because they're fun, enjoyable, they can talk about relevant stuff from the story of the game, but in general the skip button is a godsend. And a thing that I very often complained about in Genshin Impact, sometime in Honkai Star Rail were the mini games because they felt completely off. On the other hand, they feel much better in Zenless Zone Zero due to the setting. For perspective, in Genshin Impact, you find yourself in an unknown planet after a goddess has separated you from the sibling. Your purpose is to find your sibling, and within a span of a few minutes you start to play hide and seek with the characters that you've just met. It has always bothered me, like the immersion breaking of the mini games in Genshin Impact always bothered me a lot, to the point that I skipped many mini games during the course of my years in Genshin Impact. In Honkai Star Rail, there are some that feel extremely off, and some were just flat out dreadful. The cursed cocktail event in Penacony is forever engraved in my brain, and I will never forget it, as one of the worst gaming experiences of my life. There's a chance you've not played Honkai Star Rail, but in Penacony, which is the 2.x cycle world, there is an event where you go to talk to an NPC that you have never met before. And she's a lovely NPC with a very beautiful design. Oh, the Gunnar girl is back. And we exposed her, she turns away. With a very beautiful design. The problem is, the gameplay of the event is the dullest gameplay possible, and you have to do it interacting with other NPCs that are essentially the enemies of the game. They just become NPCs for that event, and at the end of each section of the game there is a quest where that NPC you don't care about asks you to go with them to an area with the puzzles that are all extremely dull and repetitive. That was the worst minigame in any of MiHoYo games ever. If we could have skipped every dialogue, the game would have been, I would say, 15 minutes of gameplay. You do it, you get the rewards, you are done, fine. But what MiHoYo made me go through for that game, minigame, the cursed cocktail event, there were no cocks and there were no tails in that event. False advertisement. It was unfathomable. Here in Zenless Zone Zero, we are a couple of who operates a VCR store, and we also do kinda hacking stuff, and we have an arcade next to home, and it's Gunnar girl is back. From Gun girl to Gunnar girl. It's a small step, and it's a city environment, so I can see those kinds of mini games, events, and special activities to happen. So even those that are a little bit dull and repetitive, they do not bother me at all. I'm actually fine with them, even when they are a little bit long and repetitive. And I was especially worried about where is it? Well, we can access it from here. About the temple event, because management events are another thing that MiHoYo tends to time pad a lot. Really, really a lot. But it turns out that it's essentially just another login event that takes you 1 minute a day. And I have never done any speedrunning to this. Like every day I would send out the bang boos on their mission, craft what I had, put to sell what I had. No optimization at all. That was it. See you the following day. I'm at 44 out of 45, and I already got all the poly rewards long ago. So in terms of game content, I'm pretty happy. Main story is fine. The current patch main story was better than the previous one. I found the Ishuan story to be okay, but a little bit run of the mill. It didn't feel particularly special. Whereas this one with the Yuzu Haineli is, it has just been released. I will not spoil anything, but I found it a lot more enjoyable and interesting. And now I'm a bit worried about the next time that we're going to get a full Depresso mode video, either for Yasuha or Alice. It's probably going to be extremely Depresso mode. But it was fine. It was good. And characters... How about power creep? Has it been problematic? Not really. We're just getting better characters over time. For the most part, we're still getting new characters that do new things rather than direct upgrades over older ones. The only one that for me... Well, the problematic one for me is Miyabi, because she ignores too many game mechanics. And she deals a crazy amount of single target damage. She clears the whole screen. She deals a special kind of elemental damage, so she doesn't care about the elemental resistance of the enemy. She has a million iframe. For me, she's the only one who was a little bit overtuned. Ishuan is a very strong character. She deals a ton of damage. She's a bit more complex to use than other characters, but she doesn't feel to me like she's completely blowing off water someone like Evelyn. Like Evelyn is very, very good. And they do completely different things, like their playstyle, their team composition, completely different. So we're still not to the point where we can compare one-to-one new and old characters, at least among the 5-star characters. Even think about Astra and Yuzuha. Yeah, they're both limited 5-star support characters that buff attack. But in addition to that, they do a lot of other things. So one is more specific for anomaly teams, although she can work for everyone, and one is more specific for quick swap team like Evelyn's, but she works in pretty much every team. Now, the day we get another 5-star anomaly support, then maybe that character will power creep Yuzuha. But MiHoYo doesn't do much direct power creeping of specific characters. It's more like a team power creeps an older team, or mostly side grades and stuff like that. And please don't complain about HP inflation, please. Please stop clicking clickbait videos, rage bait nonsense that talk about HP inflation. Of course enemies need to have a higher HP. Do you want to clear enemies that have the same amount of hit points that we were clearing when the game was just started? Meaning that no character will ever be stronger than an older character, because what's the point? If every enemy have 300,000 hit points, and you one-shot it using a skill, what's the point in getting new characters? HP inflation is something that needs to happen in games. Especially gacha games that have a long lifespan, unless they're trash. And the company wants to release new characters that are stronger or more interesting than the older ones. And in order to do so, they release new enemies that have more hit points, they have whatever game mechanics. But It has to happen when new enemies have higher hit points. Like my Jane, when I got her on day 1, was dealing with her assault about 600k. Now, with a better team, I'm dealing 1.5 million damage. If the enemies were not getting stronger and with more hit points, what would be the point in ever releasing a character stronger than Jane? Like, if I could teleport my Jane to 8-9 months ago, one of her assaults would one-shot most of the stuff in the game. Or you know, two-shot most of the stuff in the game. And releasing new enemies that have more hit points and that they're stronger and they have higher defense, higher resistance is how you keep the game going. Any game going, any gacha game going. Complaining about that for me is such a dull topic. As I was saying earlier, opinions, and yeah, complaining about enemies with more hit points for me is absolute nonsense. I come from the generation. Okay. We are 45 minutes in, so there is a good chance that you're watching this video and it's actually a separate video. In origin, this video was supposed to be a short clip after my character showcase, but I will probably split them. I come from the generation of people who played MMOs for the first time. Every time there was something new in an MMO, the weapons were better, the equipment was better, the jewelry was better, the enemies were stronger, the enemies had more hit points, the enemies had more game mechanics that you had to learn, and no one in the player base would have ever complained, oh no, the enemies in the master levels in Dark Age of Camelot have more hit points than the level 50 enemies in the starting areas of the game. This is not good game design, this is not okay. Mythic Entertainment has really botched it. No one would have ever thought of something about that. They would have been labeled lunatics. They would have been banned from every forum and social platform. That's how games progress. So stop complaining about HP inflation, please. And after that, Zenless Zone Zero is a game that, if it keeps this steady pace of development and quality level, it's a game that I'm planning to play for years to come. I don't see myself taking a break from it because the daily maintenance of the game requires very little time, just a little bit more than on Star Rail. But at the same time, the endgame is more challenging and interesting, and the game mechanics are fun when I'm at the computer. So for me, of the three Hoyo games that I play, so Genshin, Honkai Star Rail and Zenless Zone Zero, this one is my favorite. Not by a huge gap. I enjoy Honkai Star Rail a lot, but if you have an old account and you do vertical investment more than horizontal investment, Honkai Star Rail has become an idle game, meaning that if your characters are strong to the point that you clear on autoplay with max points all the end game content. Then, of course, if you have the good relics, if you reach the required speed or damage threshold with the correct teams and all the sort of stuff, you can also try to push things for a zero cycle doing it manually. But most of the days when I go to work and I come back home and I'm on my commute, Honkai Star Rail is just a beautiful idle game that I enjoy a lot. And you know, I skip multiple characters, then I giga invest in one that I like a lot, then I skip characters, I giga invest in one that I like a lot. And I still find that to be better in terms of gameplay and more enjoyable on a personal level rather than having every character at Eidolon 0 with whatever slop weapon just to collect them. It doesn't make me very happy to have a million characters that I'm not using. When I was showing my characters earlier, I was saying that yeah, I got Chin-E early, but I've not used her in months. Yeah, I got her because she's very cute, but I've not used her in months. Having characters that I pulled for and that I invested the resources on and that I enjoyed having, but I no longer use them for whatever reason, it always bothers me a little bit. So I try to keep my accounts more vertically invested rather than horizontally. And yeah, this second part of the video where I talk about my Zenless Zone Zero experience / feedback has been extremely long, so I'm going to cut it and upload it as a separate video. Thank you for stopping by and watching either this one or the previous one, don't miss it, with the showcase of all my characters. And I'll see you next time. Bye guys, take care.